28 Days Later is a terrifying new thriller from Danny Boyle, the man who brought us Trainspotting. Set 28 days after a devastating epidemic ravages Britain, the film follows a handful of survivors as they struggle to make sense of the aftermath.
Very simply, it's a story of a group of survivors trying to make their way to safety after the outbreak of a terrible viral infection.
It gives people this incurable disease which fills their veins and blood with their pure rage, and it turns them into these infected people.
And then eventually everything just stops, and there's only so many people left.
But how far from reality, though, is the premise of 28 Days Later? And how protected are we from a new killer pandemic?
We evaluated overall trends in deaths due to infectious diseases. Looked at in this way, infectious diseases haven't gone away. They have increased as a cause of death in recent years after decades of decline.
The threat to us at the moment from infectious diseases is probably as big as it's ever been and getting worse.
The threat of infection to human mortality on a worldwide scale is still very great. We have to anticipate that there will be a major pandemic at some stage. There will be many deaths associated with that.
I remember actually when I was at secondary school and my teacher was saying that, we shouldn't worry about global warming or any of these things. She said you should worry about viruses, and that for some reason has always stayed with me.
There's something very interesting happened while we were filming. There were two German scientists who created a totally synthetic polio virus, but they got all the material off the web.
This is the new fear, isn't it? Even in weapons of mass destruction, what everybody's really worried about is the anthrax, smallpox, those kind of things.
Infectious diseases are indeed the new paranoia that's striking Western society. It is this fear of invisible threats to you, just something there in the air, waiting to strike.
If you forget about a disease and consider it beaten, then the organism will take the opportunities which you increasingly offer it.
Nothing else has the power to bring a nation to its knees like the consequences of a killer epidemic.
I expect new things to appear over the years, but you can't predict when and where.
I don't think we're ever far from the next pandemic.
Over the last 10 years, an alarmingly high number of national crises have been a direct consequence of infectious disease.
But there's always been rumblings. I've always felt a little uneasy in the way things have been going. It's constantly testing what the world can take,
In the case of foot and mouth, it resulted in the slaughter of over 5 million animals. That's more than the entire human population of Liverpool.
We saw in the foot and mouth epidemic just how quickly things can spread.
More than 127,000 farms were subjected to infected area restrictions. It put the greatest strain imaginable on the country's animal health services. Eventually, it resulted in the military being drafted in.
So you heard our broadcast?
Yeah, we did.
We must be a disappointment. You were hoping for a full brigade, an army base with helicopters and a field hospital.
We're just hoping for...
The answer to infection.
Yeah.
The cost to the economy has been estimated at over £4.2 billion.
From the recent outbreak of foot and mouth disease, I think we've actually learned some important lessons.
We can't always prevent the outbreaks of infectious disease in the UK. Our aim is to pick them up quickly, provide the evidence on which containment measures can be taken, and build a protection system such as through vaccination.
If an illness can spread so quickly and have such an effect on the nation's livestock, surely it's not just the animals that are at risk.
We need to take very seriously the possible threat of diseases moving from animals to us. It's now been almost incontrovertibly established that the virus which causes HIV in us came from monkeys.
One concern that is high in people's minds is the ability of some organisms to transfer from animals to people and cause serious disease.
There are over 400 known pathogens that can already transmit from animals to people.
In Malaysia, a few years ago, a big outbreak of what was called Nipah virus disease in pigs spread to human beings and caused over 100 deaths.
We shouldn't assume that if a disease is in an animal, that it won't at some stage pose a threat to us.
At the moment, foot and mouth can't infect humans, but there is a chance it might evolve.
Like a family.
Do you think they're infected?
No.
Look at variant CJD, you know, the human form of mad cow disease. Where was that 30 years ago? Didn't exist.
There are concerns that new diseases do arise and will arise. That's the whole nature of evolution.
Got some bad news.
Increased mobility is one huge factor in that. Much more international travel than we've ever had before.
The day before the TV and radio stopped broadcasting, there were reports of infection in Paris and New York. You didn't hear anything more after that?
Infection knows no boundaries, no man-made boundaries between countries, so there has to be international collaboration in tracking the spread of infectious diseases. But in the very nature of evolution, new ones will evolve or change and be able to cause disease. We have to be ready to deal with them.
What about the government? What do they do?
There's no government.
Of course there's a government. There's always a government. They're in a bunker or a plane.
The notion that we can put our faith in institutions and forget about them is what the danger is.
We saw a little bit of that with the BSE thing, and you know, they couldn't cope.
The notion that you can say, well, I have a gun there, so that means I'm safe, is a nonsense.
The answer to infection is here.
If it's a recording, for all we know, the soldiers who made it are dead.
It's possible, yeah.
And that stuff about the answer to infection, I mean, there is no answer to infection. It's already done pretty much all the damage it can.
Maybe they have a cure.
Maybe they've got nothing at all.
Well, the only way to find out is to reach them.
We could die trying, Frank.
In the last year of the 20th century, communicable diseases accounted for an estimated 25% of deaths worldwide.
When you look at tuberculosis worldwide and malaria and the other infectious diseases, gastroenteritis in the third world, these are major killers.
Every day the human body is coming under attack from disease-causing microbes. Nobody is immune.
We're living in a sea of bacteria, let there be no doubt about that. They're in our environment, they're on our skin.
So the idea of a new killer epidemic infecting the country is not far-fetched at all.
Here in the United States, we've seen the West Nile virus, which is a disease of birds spread between them by mosquitoes. But if those mosquitoes happen to bite people, they can transmit the virus to people who get an encephalitis.
But it would be, I think, very unfortunate if people didn't sensibly think, if there is an outbreak that suddenly strikes the place, well, let's follow certain simple rules.
Because if something like this were to happen, like scares or biological warfare, that's what you see happening. You see this panic, you know? And what you get in this film is the remnants of panic.
I looked down and I was standing on all these people, like a carpet, people who have fallen, and somewhere in the crowd they were infected. It spread fast.
It's not so much a question of will it happen, but when will it happen?
Just as the Darwinian principles of survival of the fittest and evolution are accepted for mammals, then the same is happening at a much smaller level for bacteria. And that whenever they're put under intolerable pressure, as they may be by the common use of an antibiotic, for example, then they will pretty rapidly find a way around it.
Only travel during daylight, unless you got no choice.
So what is the virus that wipes out the population of London in 28 days later?
Scientists are experimenting and trying to find a cure for rage, kind of like a suppressant drug, like Valium for depression or whatever, very roughly. And it goes wrong.
I know who you are.
I know what you think you're doing.
You don't want to get hurt. Keep your mouth shut and don't move a muscle.
The chimps are infected. They're highly contagious. They've been given an inhibitor.
Infected with what?
In order to cure, you must first understand.
Infected with what?
Rage.
It's a primate-based virus. It's hideously virulent. It's spread by contact with the blood.
Scratches, bites, etc.
And it leads to the all permanent, appalling state of aggression.
Mailer? Jim. Jim. Mailer. Got infected 2 days ago.
Feel this incredible rage which blots out any other feeling at all, and rage manifests itself in just totally wanting to destroy another person, destroy buildings. It's just about complete destruction.
Imagine yourself in your worst moment of road rage and multiply it by 1 million, and that's what these people are like.
It opens up big philosophical things, that whether it's a very modern disease or whether it's always been with us.
It's actually part of us, and all it's doing is bringing out something that we're all terribly, I'm afraid, capable of.